moving on to one that could get quite interesting is to just go through some dryer brands.
Hmm.
So would you, out of the sort of the more popular ones, what would you recommend in general if someone's looking for dryers, maybe of different budgets?
Gotcha. So we'll start on kind of the high end of the budget. LG all around is a great pick. It's quiet. It's solid. They really don't break a lot. LG is one of the brands that I've probably had to replace the least amount of heating elements in. Overall, it's just a really great pick. A little more expensive. Another really good choice is Speed Queen. They can be more expensive than LG, and they don't look fancy, but they are solid, built to last dryers, and they're one of the few brands that have more than a 1 year manufacturer warranty. That's kind of how well they're built. So, like, hands down, those are the two choices if money's not really an issue. When you start to kind of get in the mid-range, a lot of your brands, Maytag is really good, especially the dryers that match a front load. And it's a fair price. They kind of range in the mid-range to the low to the higher mid-range, depending on what you're looking for. So after Maytag, I would say your Whirlpools, your Kenmores are a good choice for mid-range. And when you get into the low range, Amana is a solid choice. It doesn't look pretty. It's a little bit louder, but I believe Amana is made by Whirlpool. I'm not 100%, but I think it is Whirlpool. It's kind of like their low end. Also, surprisingly enough, I wouldn't recommend a GE, but GE's lower end brand is Hotpoint, and those are actually pretty solid because they're built very basically. They really don't have a lot of issues, and they're super cheap. That would kind of cover the spectrum from like the low to the mid to the high. The only brand I really wouldn't recommend would be GE. Bosch, it is possible to find a Bosch dryer, and it's not that they're bad. It's just that there's not a lot of servicers that would work on Bosch because we just don't really see them in the field a lot out here. I think those would kind of be my choices for those ranges.
Yeah, makes sense. What about a quick sort of comparison? I think three of the larger brands that people typically go for are LG, Samsung, and Whirlpool. What would
Yeah.
you sort of advise if someone's looking at one or two or all three of those brands?
So definitely it would be what you're looking for. So if maybe you don't really use the dryer a whole lot, but you're really into the aesthetics of it and you want something that is flashy, is fancy, it looks good, it plays a little ditty for you whenever you turn it on and off. Samsung's always a go-to. They're definitely the flashiest brand out there. They don't really have that many problems with the dryer. I definitely see more Samsungs in the field just because they sell so many of them, but they do tend to get kind of noisy over time. Some of their more higher end models, they did finally start putting like a cushion type material between a lot of the metal pieces that touch each other. So that does help it not get as noisy as it ages. But they perform very well. The features on them, they have a lot of like eco dry and stuff like that. So they've got some really neat features. So that it's really not a bad choice, especially if you can find a good deal on a Samsung. Whirlpool all around. If you get a lower end model, if you could find one with a mechanical timer, great. It's going to last forever. Even their higher end ones are built very simply and not overly complicated. And I think that's what I like about Whirlpool is there's not 1,000 different bells and whistles that are going to malfunction and require a technician to come out to fix. And then what was the last one? LG? Or
Yeah, just to touch on LG. I know you mentioned it before, but just
Yeah.
to touch on it again.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, LG, again, a little more expensive, but a great choice. Super quiet, really doesn't break a whole lot. They are pretty close to Samsung as far as aesthetics. They don't quite have all the bells and whistles, but they're a really nice looking unit. They're also really solid. They're not going to move around a lot. They are typically pretty heavy, though, especially their front load match dryers, especially if you get a pedestal. And they can tend to be pretty bulky. So with an LG, you definitely want to measure before you pay to make sure it's going to fit in your laundry room and through the doorway.
Yeah, good tip. I imagine it's something that a number of people have kind of gotten home and excited to fit it in, and then realize it's no way it's going to fit in there.
Oh yeah, gonna have to take off the door frame and get the hammer and it's